Delivered at the Democratic National Convention, the 1988 address by Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson illustrates a stunning example of rhetorical strategy. Jackson aimed to urge the audience to consider him as a nominee for the presidency in the election of 1988. Although Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis was in the lead for the Democratic nomination, Jackson's moving speech helped shrink the gap between the two Democratic nominees. His tone throughout the speech is both encouraging and understanding. He establishes common ground with his audience, then appeals to them and urges them to vote for him. Ultimately, Dukakis was chosen for the election, but Jackson had eloquently made his case.
Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. lies only a few miles from us tonight. Tonight he must feel good as he looks down upon us. We sit here together, a rainbow, a coalition, the sons and daughters of slave masters and the sons and daughters of slaves sitting together around a common table to decide the direction of our party and our country. His heart would be full tonight.
Jackson begins his speech by discussing the past historical context for the present situation. He appeals to America's values of suffrage and equal rights and supports his ethos by using a historical allusion. He establishes this historical context to create a foundation and connection with the audience that he can then build on by presenting his thesis and exhorting them to vote for him.
As a testament to the struggles of those who have gone before, as a legacy for those who will come after, as a tribute to the endurance, the patience, the courage of our forefathers and mothers, as an assurance that their prayers are being answered, that their work has not been in vain, and the hope is eternal. Tomorrow night, my name will go in nomination for the presidency of the United States of America.
Jackson's thesis is in the form of a periodic sentence, meaning that the main subject and verb lies at the end. He does this to emphasize his main point, that tomorrow he might be nominated for the presidency. Jackson also employs parallelism in his thesis. He asserts, as a testament, as a tribute, as an assurance. This parallelism helps emphasize the significance of his nomination and further persuades his audience to vote for him.
Tonight, I salute Governor Michael Dukakis. He has run a well-managed and a dignified campaign. No matter how tired or how tried, he always resisted the temptation to stoop to demagoguery.
Jackson acknowledges the strengths and character qualities of his rival in the nomination, Governor Michael Dukakis. By doing so, he strengthens his argument by presenting himself as a fair and reasonable man who acknowledges the strengths of his opponents and thus strengthens his ethos. This adds credibility to himself as a speaker and to his speech.
His foreparents came to America on immigrant ships. My foreparents came to America on slave ships. But whatever the original ships, we're in the same boat tonight.
Although Jackson does praise his opponent, he also highlights several key differences between them. He portrays himself as more representative of the poor common masses and Dukakis as more out of touch with the people. By doing this, Jackson supports his argument by emphasizing the togetherness of the party, but also illustrating how he could prove to be the better of the two candidates.
When I was a child growing up in Greenville, South Carolina, and Grandmama could not afford a blanket, instead she took pieces of old cloth, patches, wool, silk, gabardine, croquet sack, only patches, the sturdy hands and the strong cord. She sewed them together into a quilt, a thing of beauty and power and culture. Now, Democrats, we must build such a quilt. Farmers, you seek fair prices and you're right, but you cannot stand alone. Your patch is not big enough. Workers, you fight for fair wages, you're right, but your patch labor is not big enough. Women, you seek comparable worth and pay equity, you're right, but your patch is not big enough. Be as wise as my grandmama. pull the patches and the pieces together, bound by a common thread. When we form a great quilt of unity and common ground, we'll have the power to bring about health care and housing and jobs and education and hope to our nation.
Jackson forms an extended metaphor, or conceit, of all of the people that his audience represents in his grandmother's quilt. Jackson's conceit illustrates his view of a pluralistic America and seeks to demonstrate how all Americans can retain their ethnic and racial heritage while living together successfully. In using this metaphor, Jackson rejects the traditional melting pot metaphor of American assimilation. Instead, he describes the quilt with many different pieces, but continues to repeat and emphasize that no one's patch is big enough.
At 3 o'clock on Thanksgiving Day, we couldn't eat turkey because Mama was preparing somebody else's turkey at 3 o'clock. We had to play football to entertain ourselves. And then around 6 o'clock, she would get off the Alta Vista bus, and we would bring up the leftovers and eat our turkey, leftovers, the caucus, the cranberries, around 8 o'clock at night. I really do understand. Every one of these funny labels they put on you, those of you who are watching this broadcast tonight in the projects, on the corners, I understand. Call you outcast, low down, you can't make it, you're nothing, you're from nobody, subclass, underclass. When you see Jesse Jackson, when my name goes in nomination, your name goes in nomination.
Jackson relates his own story to connect emotionally with his audience. This allows his audience to identify with and relate to him. He then uses this connection to proclaim to his audience that his nomination equates their nomination.
Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. On tomorrow night and beyond. Keep hope alive. I love you very much.
Jackson ends with a final exhortation to his audience. His repetition enforces his message to elect him for the nomination and thus keep hope alive. Throughout his speech, Jackson identified with and connected to his audience, proving his ability to lead the nation.